So Epictetus has this one quote that got me hooked on Stoic philosophy, and it sounds so simple and so banal and so trite but it clicked with me. Some things are up to us, some things aren't. That's it. It's a dichotomy of control. This dichotomy of control. And 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 then let's think about what is up to us. Up to us is basically how we behave. It's how we react to things. Everything else, our values are up to us. Everything else is not up to us.
Welcome to the 5th season of Mind the Shift. My name is Anders Bolling. My premier guest in this fall season is a man with a fascinating life story to tell, which he has also done in a new book called Soul in the Game, The Art of a Meaningful Life. He is a philosophical value investor, or perhaps a philosopher who invests money. Either way, he's successful in this endeavor, despite or perhaps thanks to the fact that he grew up in one of the harshest authoritarian systems the world has known, the Soviet Union. Formally, he has a master's degree and is a CFA charter holder, but he likes to call himself a student of life. Welcome to the show, Vitaliy Katsenelson.
Andres, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And you're in Colorado, right? Isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Not Denver, but smaller place.
No, it's Denver. No,
it is Denver.
It is Denver. Yeah. It's a Denver metro area. Yeah.
And that's where you've been living for a long time, I understand.
Yeah. We lived. I left Murmansk. We left Russia in 1991, and moved basically directly to Colorado, and I've been here since. So almost for 30 plus years.
Yeah, you're very loyal to that area then.
Oh, I love it. Just I'll give you a contrast. Imagine growing up in a city above the Arctic Circle, where there is where I don't see sun basically for a few months a year, and now going to a city where there is 320 or 30 or 50 days of sunshine a year, some insane number, Yeah. So yes, there's a great contrast. Yeah.
I can understand that. Well, I'm in Sweden, so it's. I think it's not as bad in Stockholm as in Murmansk, but in the wintertime, it's a little bit like that. So you don't see the sun for a long, long time. So I can understand the allure of Colorado and other places, of course, in the United States.
Yeah.
So your book is a great read, and it's both very personal and also very hands-on, I would say. It's something of a life guide. And it's philosophically written. You have before written 2 books about investment,
yes.
and now you come up with this one, which is about life, more or less. So, How did that come about? Why did you suddenly? I mean, after having written these very practical books about investment, and then you write about life, how did it come about?
Yeah, Freddie Mercury had this song titled "There Must Be More to Life Than This."
Yeah.
And this was kind of I've been right. So my day job, I manage money, but I also got lucky, and by complete accident, I started writing in 2004. And in the beginning, I started writing about just about investing, and after been writing about investing maybe for 8 or 10 years, I kind of got fairly comfortable doing that, and I didn't see as much challenge in that. And gradually, I started to write more about topics that kind of more life related, about my kids, about travel, about classical music. And then over time, as I've done more and more of this, I got confidence to write that I can actually write about life, this is important as a writer. Confidence is extremely important. Because when I was writing about investing, you could argue that I had the right to write about investing because I have 2 finance degrees, I have a CFA, this is what I do. So I earned kind of, you could argue that I earned the right to write, to write about investing. How do you earn the right to write about life? Like, because you need the confidence to do this. And I think I just kind of, little at a time, I would write. And I have a very large subscriber base. People subscribe to my articles, and they originally came. They subscribed to my articles because of my thoughts on investing. But then these people would say, Vitaliy, I came to you for your articles on investing, but I'm really staying for your articles about life.
Mm. Did you write about life in the articles about investing?
Yeah. So the way
were they
explain,
different articles?
Yeah, no. So this is how. So initially, this is how I tiptoed into it. So I want to. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast, you should subscribe to my articles just to see this. But this is how my article looks like. You have my father's art at the very top. Then this is how it used to look like. My father's art at the top. Then there is some kind of a few paragraphs about life. Then investment article. Then you have my brother's art at the bottom. And then there is some kind of a short article about classical music. Mm. So in the beginning, I would just put like a little life story above the investment article. And then, because I didn't have enough confidence just to write a life article on its own. And as I got more and more positive feedback on my investment little blurbs, I actually got confidence to write full-blown articles. And then over time, now when I send out articles, sometimes they're about investing, sometimes they're about life. But that's the reason I want to bring this up, because I think it's very important to understand that it's where it took me a long time to get comfortable to write about life. So, but I've done it for a long time now, and the people would encourage, a lot of readers encouraged me to write a book. Just take all my articles about life together, put them into a book. And basically 2 years ago, I said, okay, I'll do it. And while I was doing it, I wrote another half the book. So what you read is a collection of my articles, rewritten and re-edited, etc. And basically 40 to 50% of new writing.
Yeah. And it's, as I said, has a philosophical streak. Have you always had that philosophical trait in your personality?
No, I think writing actually, like, one of the most important things that happened to me as an individual is writing. Let me tell you why. Because I get up every day, 4:30, 5 o'clock, and write for 2 hours. So for 2 hours a day, I have this, like, it's a focused thinking where I think about a subject for 2 hours, and when you start when you do this for a long period of time, it kind of rewrites your brain.
It rewires your brain in a way.
Yes, because it rewires, because you start looking at life as a writer. And you start observing things. You become more mindful, I would argue, and you start looking for stories in life, so it's almost like two of you look at life. It's me as a kind of a normal individual, and me as a writer. So, and I would argue it's me as the writer that kind of made me a lot more philosophical. And also, and there is another catalyst. Which is my kids. Like, when I became a father, especially my kids started to grow up, they triggered, I guess, that was another trigger for me to become more philosophical.
No, I understand. Yeah, many fathers and mothers can witness that, can say that, I think, also. But because, I mean, speaking about family is very much at the center here in your writings, in many of your articles. You write a lot about your kids. You have 3 kids?
I have 3 kids.
A wife and 3 children.
Yeah, my son is 21, and I have 2 daughters, 16 and 8.
Yeah. And so I think the family is more at the center than in many other books of this kind that I've read. I would say. Do you think that family is undervalued many times?
I think, and this is there are many ways. If you were to ask me, how do you have how do you lead a meaningful life? I would ask you that you need to have something. You need to do something creative that gives you creative jolt. Kind of recharge your creative batteries, and you need to have meaningful relationships. And when so to me, family is part of that. My kids, my family is my relationship is my wife, my parents, my brothers, like that is this
the
relationship.
extended family. So
Yeah, and in my friends, these relationships give me meaning. And then finally, like I feel I need to do something net positive to society to give me kind of a bigger purpose. Those three things kind of stand, that's what create meaning to me in my life. I'm not sure, but by the way, and this is important about the book, and I hope you agree, is that it's not written as a prescription. This is what you should do. It's written as basically Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, had this. I love this line where he says, when he was a teacher, and he says, "I'm not talking to you as a teacher talking to a student. I'm talking to or as a doctor talking to a patient. I'm talking to you as a patient, as one patient talking to another about his travails in life, and so that's so just kind of pull your bed next to mine and let me tell you about what I think. And that's kind of the mental state I had when I was writing this book. This is me. I'm not saying what I'm doing is absolutely right, and by the way, I've reserved the right as I grow up and I learn more to change my mind on some things I wrote. But this is just kind of my view of the world, and this is how I go through life. And if this helps you, great.
Yeah, I understand. I read that way also, but I made that reflection about the family and among many other reflections. But because I mean, maybe it's a cultural thing also, and you come from Russia and also the United States. I think both those countries have strong family values. Scandinavia, where I live, not so much. That doesn't mean that people don't love their families, because they do. But it's not that common to have. I mean, if I were to write a book about my life, it would probably not be so much focused on my father and mother, for instance. I would mention them, of course, and they have been important in my life. But in your book, it's like you have a very, very close bond, which is wonderful. But either it's just, I mean, it's in your case, or it's a cultural thing, or it's just me who is.
What? Can I ask a question? Actually, I want to learn this. Why is it? Why is Scandinavia so different? What makes it?
I think it's an individualistic region. It's a part of the world where it's the focus is more on the persons, the individuals, and they do things together, but they are mainly individual. It also is reflected in policy and in how society works and how authorities works and all that, because family is not the baseline thing. It's the individual that's the baseline. When you pay taxes, for instance, you don't pay taxes as a family member, but as an individual. So I think, it has to do with old things from, I mean, the 19th and 18th centuries, when people were peasants, and very, very many people living here were very independent peasants, and we didn't have this, strong, what's the word? I tend to forget, but big, powerful people owning big lands, living in castles, and having slaves and things like
aristocracy and
aristocracy, not so strong in Sweden. So I mean, I'm just babbling here, but I think that's part of the explanation.
It's kind of interesting because it's part of the reason why I love doing this podcasts is because I'm really here to learn.
Yeah,
and this is because I'm really talk about it, and you get to talk about it to interesting people. So so it's so like when one fish in the water does not know that's in the water. That's I think. I don't know how else. I think that's just how I would argue. My friends in the United States have similar values, and my friends in Russia had similar values, and people surrounding me. So that's probably cultural thing. But See, I would not even know that unless there was a contrast, and Scandinavia provides it. I guess provides that
It
contrast.
does, yeah. Maybe if you go here, you were mentioning before we did this interview that you might go
Yeah,
here next year, so you might notice some of that. I mean, you need to talk to people deeply, of course, before you can detect things like that. But
yeah. We all. I want to share with you this concept, which is it's not in the book, but I think it's a very interesting concept. I call it myopic circles.
mhm.
Okay, so uh, I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends who smoke, not a single one. And and this is when I was growing up, I had a lot of friends who smoked. But as I got older, and you can argue that when people smoke, that, and again, I'm not judging anybody who smokes. This is just to illustrate a point.
Yeah.
But people who my friends have a certain set of values, and smoking is not part of that or contradicts some of their values, right? Therefore, I don't have any friends who smoke, and it's very easy for me to look at the world and think that nobody else smokes, because
Mm.
anywhere I look through my daily interactions, I don't see anybody who smokes. Now, if you find, so that is my myopic circle. That's how I
What's the
see
word
the
again? The Maya.
myopic.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, myopic. I understand. Yeah,
my
nearsighted. Yeah.
nearsighted soul. Yes, exactly. That's my nearsighted soul. Yeah. Now, if you find if let's say you see somebody on the street who smokes, and you talk to this person, you find that that person probably knows so many more people who smoke, because. So here's the thing: if I started smoking, like for today, if I started smoking, probably a lot of my friends would feel uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
so I mean, in my little circle, that's not something you do. But these myopic circles exist in our life, in everything. Like if you look at about vaccinations in the United States, people who were vaccinated, they were surrounded by people who were vaccinated. People who were not vaccinated, if you are belong to political parties, if you're a Democrat, most likely most of your friends or people you choose to be your friends were the Democrats. Your family, you can't control that, right? But um, the reason I bring this up, because like living in the United States, that's one huge myopic circle. Like the way I look at, like, for me, writing about family, that is normal as fish being in the water, right? And for
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
you being in Scandinavia, for you that's different because it's a different society, different cultures, and this is part of the reason why I love to travel, because for these reasons, because I get to see, like kind of step outside of my
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
myopic circles.
Different
Anyway,
perspectives. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, of course, I love doing that also. And I have to say, I have to clarify that it's not that I think that it was a very strange thing of you to write about your family.
yeah,
It's just a reflection.
yeah, yeah.
It's a detail, but it's kind of interesting in a way.
It's just like in the culture you export, like in your, like if this book was written like in Scandinavia, this book would stand out as being different,
Perhaps
more
a little
different,
bit. Perhaps a
more
little bit.
different than,
Yeah. More.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would argue that a person who had grown up in Sweden and had the same kind of situation as you have, and same job, and wrote a book like this, it would probably not focus so much on the family. I would guess.
Yeah.
There's another. I want to ask about perhaps another myopic circle of yours, which you have come out of now, I guess, namely the fact that you grew up in the Soviet Union. So how, what has it meant for you to have that background? Has it in any way perhaps helped you or been a hindrance in when exploring the landscape of capitalism, which you didn't have when you grew up?
It's actually, oh, this is great. It's almost like when you grow up in Russia, as I use the analogy, growing up in Murmansk, I've not been exposed to light,
Yeah.
and then now growing up in Colorado and being exposed to all the sunshine, and you see the contrast. By the way, I'm like, Colorado is the extreme of sunshine, right? And so I'm going from one extreme to another, and the difference, the contrast is such. I appreciate light probably more than anybody who was born in Colorado, just because I've seen what life is without light, or
Yeah.
with little light.
Yeah.
Now, and the same thing with, I probably appreciate capitalism so much more than people who were born into capitalism, because I saw how dysfunctional government is at basically managing a country, and how corrupt it gets, and how corrupt things got, and therefore I would argue that this gave me a significant advantage, because my drive to succeed was so much greater, because I did not I saw how I saw like, when people say America is a land of opportunities, and it's kind of it's almost become like banal, yeah, like everybody says this. Well, I actually, when you're born here, you may not see it as much, because again, like that's you're born into it. When you've been exposed to, when you live your life, just let me give you an example. So I'm growing up in the city, Murmansk. It's 500,000 people. It has 3 or 4 educational institutions, where higher educational institutions, where basically, if I wanted to get higher education, I had choice maybe of like 20 different professions. There's a very narrow band, like either to be in a something to do with sea, like being in a naval or something like this, or some education, and there was something else I forget, like music or something. That was it. So those were my options. Okay, in the United States, like if I go to University of Colorado, I'm gonna get probably, I don't know, a few hundred options, just one university, and then we have a few dozen, dozen other universities. So that's what options give you. Like, so you can actually say, like, because I ended up going to Marine College, and I absolutely hated everything to do with ships and Navy, but I didn't have those options.
No.
So I ended up, if I ended up living in Russia, probably would have been extremely miserable, because I would have a career that I absolutely hate. And what I found, I'm very bad at doing things I hate. Some people are good through, kind of have enough willpower to plow through that. I'm horrible. The reason I succeeded in the United States, because I got to do things I love.
And you were able, you had the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
And as you say, many people who are born in the United States probably don't appreciate that as much, because it's natural to them. And many Americans today are despairing, really, actually, because they think it's getting worse, and the opportunities are diminishing. I don't know about the trends there, but I know that I've seen studies showing that the social mobility, which would be very great in the United States because it's a land of opportunity, as you say. I mean, land of the free, home of the brave. But it's actually much lesser, much smaller than in countries like Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Holland, which you might not expect, actually. So social mobility is greater in countries that are more equal, I think. That's what I've read, at least.
I know, but I'm thinking. I think it's possible. I mean, I think I'm trying to kind of analyze it as a thing. So,
well, you don't have to comment on that if you don't want to.
Yeah. No, but I think it's a very interesting observation. Let me comment on something else. I think one thing I noticed, that this younger generation is flirting with kind of socialism.
Yeah,
and
a little bit, not really. I mean, hard socialism, but
yeah. Well, they have this. Not, like, it's very hard to have nostalgia when you didn't really live through this. But they have this kind of historical nostalgia to socialism, and they're saying, well, our socialism will be better, and it doesn't really work well. But anyway, so that's as far as I want to go into it. But,
do you follow what's happening in your former home country now, and engage in it, or in any way, or do you?
So I used to be proud. I used to be very, when somebody asked, where I was from, I said I'm from Russia. I was very proud of this. Yeah. Now, when I say this, I'm not proud to be from Russia. I'm embarrassed.
You mean after the Ukraine thing, or
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed for this country, and I am disgusted by it. Like, absolutely, And so I started to follow what's happening there a lot more after the war started, and I'm.
Are you engaging in it in some way, in any way? Or
we engaged. I tried to help Ukraine. We tried to raise money for Ukraine.
Oh, right. I see.
But that's all I can do from here. I wrote, by the way, 5 essays, and if you want to read my perspective on the war, I wrote 5 essays about war in Ukraine. And the reason these essays are unique, because as somebody who was born in Russia, who like what's very important to understand is that World War II scarred Soviet Union so much more than almost any other country. And that's the war that Russia has. This has been 70 plus years ago, like ended, and almost 80 years ago, and we're still talking about it, and Russians are still talking about it. That's how much it was scarred by this. And all my life, I kind of was growing up hating Nazis and what Germans did to Russia and other countries. And for the right reasons. I'm not, but now I see that countries basically doing the same thing what Nazi Germany did to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And
in principle, if not in scale.
Well, it's too early.
Yeah.
Remember Nazi Germany, like we have a perspective of Nazi Germany after, like full perspective, right? From the beginning to the end, right? And then we can say, but if you look at, but let's say, but Nazi Germany was not like this right away, right? So if 1939, 1940, or 1941, before they had concentration camps and stuff, Nazi Germany basically bombed and killed a whole bunch of civilians. They just woke up one day and their villages and cities were bombed out by Nazis, right? Or look at what's happening in Buchi, in Ukrainian city Buchi. And as I understand, that is only one of dozens and dozens. It's just the one that get publicized. It's just the one that, but there's I read somewhere, I forget where I get the number, there are 70 other cities like that where similar things happened. So, yes, so so to me, so it's so it's almost like, and I know that's not where we want to go with this conversation, but basically think about this. When you basically, the reason I see parallels between what Russia is doing Nazi Germany, here's why. Because Russia is basically saying this: we as a nation are superior to Ukrainians. And let me explain what I mean by this. They're basically saying, and by the way, and I get this from reading a lot of Russian newspapers, that our culture is superior to theirs. They don't deserve to have a culture. And by the way, the first thing they do when Russians invade, kind of occupy a Ukrainian village or Ukrainian town, what they do, they strip that town from all Ukrainian identity. They force them to speak Russian only. They take out any kind of Ukrainian curriculum out of out of the schools.
The signs and everything.
Yeah. So how's it different from Nazi Germany again? Again, it's just because they're not killing Jews, that doesn't make them, again, I'm Jewish. So it's not, Nazis were Nazis, not just because they killed Jews, but because they said we are superior to others. And therefore and I think that's why I'm drawing a parallel between Russia and Nazi Germany.
And historically, there have been large pogroms in Russia a long time ago also against.
Yeah, and that's in the book.
I mean, they started the pogroms. It's a Russian word, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think pogroms, I think in all fairness, pogroms were common
in many
Europe.
countries,
throughout Europe. So I don't think it's a kind of Russia has a monopoly. I mean, they were in Ukraine and other countries too. So it's not. But anyway, we kind of got off the subject of the book.
I know, but
that's all right. That's all right.
It's very interesting to hear your perspective on this, because I mean, as a Swede and as many other Europeans watching this, it's like you can't really believe it's happening, and the fact that they're using these historical arguments, the Russian regime using historical arguments for doing this, it's kind of, what are they talking about? It's like, it's ridiculous, because there was some Russian politician who said something the other day about Sweden being being sour because we lost at Poltava in 1709, and that's why we are against this war. I mean,
Most Swedes don't even know what
nobody knows about that anyway in Sweden. We never talk about history in that way. It doesn't happen. It's like fiction, totally.
It's it's kind of interesting. So I have I was in a WhatsApp group with kids, but they used to be kids that I went to high school with in Russia. Okay, and I joined this group before the war, and so it was very friendly, kind of nostalgic reminiscences of our past, right? And then when the war started, I was actually able to get everything changed. And the interesting part is that one thing I learned is that they think that how everybody thought very little of Russia, and it's almost like it's very like when you wake up in the morning, before the war you thought very little about Russia or how insignificant Russia is, right? So did I. That's like I thought about is there going to be traffic when I go to work or not? That's what comes to my mind. In their mind, they basically thought that the West thinks of Russia very little, and that Russia and so it's almost like right now they're trying to in this war, Russians trying to gain respect from the West.
And do people believe that? Do people actually?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, ordinary people.
That's
so.
Exactly
Would you say that you can actually blame is a hard word, but let's say you can actually, to some extent, blame the Russian people for this war being possible?
Yes, but for a different reason.
For a different reason, because I tend to want to say that those who are to blame are the regime, are the people in power, and there are very few, and it's always been like that. That's what I want to say. But I mean, this is interesting if it's something in the Russian mentality or something.
So there's yes, but for a different reason.
Okay.
So these people, most people in Russia are brainwashed. Like it's a Putin regime uses basically Nazis, like same propaganda tactics in the sense that. I'll give you a couple examples. Basically, over time, the free press was completely killed in Russia, and all the television is basically owned by by Kremlin. Like when I say owned, it's literally those are government channels. There was dozens and dozens reporters. And were killed in Russia that were anti-Putin, So over time the free press was killed in Russia. So these people, I don't blame them to some degree because they're brainwashed. However, here's what I blame them for. When I left Russia, it was for a little while it was a democracy. It was a country moving towards the democracy. But here is the Russian, and my father had this saying, and I really, really think he's right. Russians fall in love with their leaders. They really fall in love. And when they do this, they end up giving those people unlimited power. When Putin was elected, Russia was still a democracy. But with every year, he asked for a little bit more power. And the Russians gave it to him.
Yeah,
and it was boiling
the frog in the.
No, that's right. Yeah, and then that's exactly right. And then what happened at the end, that he got so much power, and that it's basically he became a dictator, and it corrupted him. So now, and this is important to understand. Now, if you go on a street and you say anything against the war, you get arrested. If you do this enough, you end up in jail.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is and this is the point, and this is the point I want to stress is that. So do I blame these people? Well, I'm basically looking at them as zombies. Like, and I really mean it in the sense that they're zombified. So if you talk to any one of them, they all gonna sound the same. Now, but
Because I mean, it's not a genetic difference between Americans and Russians. Of course, I mean it's the same human beings, but as you say, they might have been brainwashed.
Yeah, I think
for so long.
I think it's cultural difference. I think like Americans, for instance, are very skeptical of the government, and so the laws are never be written for an individual. They should be written for a system.
Yeah.
And I think what the beauty of American system, of American Constitution, that it basically assumes that at some point you're going to have somebody in power who is going to be the worst specimen of the society, and this system is built for us to survive that. Russians could have had that system, but they didn't. And so that's I think that's kind of the So that's when you ask me if I blame the people, well, I blame them not for. I mean, they're brainwashed now, so but I blame them for allowing for giving so much power to current regime.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe we should leave that topic now and we'll all see what happens in the coming months and years here with Russia and with the war and everything. So back to the book, there are two things or two features perhaps that seem to be very especially important to you, apart from the family, of course. And one is the Stoics, the Stoic philosophy. And many people don't know about them. Probably, I mean, they were Greeks and Romans who wrote wise things about life about 2,000 years ago. So, tell me about the Stoics. How did you come across them, and in what ways have their teachings improved your life?
So, when you think about philosophy, when you think about Stoic philosophy, you think about the marble statues that you see when you go to to Europe, right? Or when you're at home.
I have so many here in my home.
Yeah, that's right. And it's very intimidating. It's really intimidating. But if you actually start reading about Stoic philosophers, you realize that they just writing about human condition, and the human condition hasn't changed in 2,000 years. I was reading I forget which line it was, but I was reading about Seneca pontificating how our time is divided and how we can't concentrate on one thing at once and we get distracted by things. And you would be thinking about Facebook or Netflix, right? Yes, but he was writing this 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
2,000 years ago. And I don't know what were the distractions then. Was it fights in the Colosseum or whatever? I have no idea. But so things have not changed. So when I let me tell you how I look at Stoic philosophy. When you and I are born, we are basically a computer that has some rudimentary software, like operating system, and it's fairly blank. And then our parents start writing it and tell us, how we should do with life, and then our friends, and then the teachers at school, and then things that happen to us in life that impact us, our thinking. So kind of our operating system of how we deal with life, it's almost it's a hodgepodge, and it hasn't really been. We don't really have this kind of manual, like a manual for life. And what Stoic philosophy does gives you this roadmap of how to live a good life, how to live a life where you minimize pain and get the most meaning out of life, let me tell you how I got to answer your question, how I got to Stoic philosophy. So there's three main Stoics, or the Stoics that we basically hear about, that we have the most left the most writings behind. It's Seneca, and Seneca he was a kind of a Renaissance man of
before the Renaissance.
Before the Renaissance, he was a senator, he was a playwright, he was a writer, he was a banker, so many advisor to an emperor, and Seneca. Then you have Epictetus, who was a slave. And then you have Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor. So, and those three people basically left a lot of writings behind, a lot of wisdom behind. Though Epictetus hasn't left anything behind, but he had a student who basically took notes in his class.
Okay.
So Epictetus has this one quote that got me hooked on Stoic philosophy, and it sounds so simple and so banal and so trite but it clicked with me. Some things are up to us, some things aren't. That's it. It's a dichotomy of control. It's this dichotomy of control. And let me and then let's think about what is up to us. Up to us is basically how we behave. It's how we react to things. Everything else, our values are up to us. Everything else is not up to us. It's not up to me if you got on this call 30 minutes late. Mm-hmm. It's not up to me if I was driving to work and every single light was a red light. It's not up to me if I go to a grocery store and the person is rude to me. Mm-hmm. It's not up to me. And once you realize this, the only thing is up to me how I react to this.
Yeah, that's very important, I think. Yeah,
and now here I have a choice. Mm. I can choose to make it upset me, and then I'm going to have a very miserable life because every single encounter with is gonna basically poison my life. Or I can choose it to basically to reframe it where I'm indifferent to it. Okay, if I am driving, and I can frame, or I can either indifferent, or I can frame it in a way that's positive. Like if I'm driving to work and I'm stuck in traffic, I guess I have an opportunity to listen to more podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, if I'm at the grocery store and a clerk is rude to me, I have an opportunity to practice Stoic philosophy and just to see if I can help this person or I can ignore this or just it's up to me how I react to this. And so
I like that. That's good. It's good. I mean, what's very difficult but also very important here and very central is that if somebody's rude to you, if somebody's angry with you, most of the time at least, it's really not. I mean, it's really their problem, and it's very difficult to understand that.
But
no, it's seldom about you. I mean, if they're angry with you because of something you just said, that's a different matter because then you have to reflect on that. Okay, maybe that was a stupid thing to say, so you can apologize or something. But often they just have a bad day. It's their problem. It's not your problem.
It's not like there's a friend of mine said it's not like they actually reach into your head and knock it and hit you in the head when they say this. Like think about it. Like it's
just words. Yeah.
It's your interpretation of what they said that allows you to feel bad about it.
That's also a thing. Your interpretation. That's even better because often this happens all the time. People say things, and you interpret it in a detrimental way. But it turns out they didn't mean that. When you speak to them a week later, you've pondered this for a week and you're getting more and more angry. And then you confront them and it turns out that, oh, that's what you thought. No, I didn't mean that. I meant this. And then it's completely, you realize that a week is lost because of your false interpretation of this.
My father has this joke that he loved telling me. And this was at the day of telegrams before text, okay? But this son sends his father a telegram, says, "Father, send me money." That's the text. "Father, I need money. Send me money."
Yeah.
And the father gets upset because he could have said, "Father, send me money." No, but he says, "Father, send me money." So it's
yeah, it's how he reads it. Yeah,
it's a completely left of your interpretation, right?
I know. Yeah,
but funny. I think it's if you but this is the point I want to stress. Like, I hopefully after your listeners and viewers listen to this podcast, they run away and buy my book and they read the book, and then they read about Stoic philosophy, But here's the message I want to stress. There is a Chinese proverb: "Knowing and not doing is not knowing."
Mm-hmm.
After you read this about Stoic philosophy, if you don't practice this, you did a good thing. You bought my book, but that's not enough. It's not going to help. It's going to help me, but it's not going to help you.
Mm.
For this to really have an impact on you, you really have to practice it. And Stoic philosophy, if you don't practice this, you don't know it.
Mm.
And those things you read in my book, or anybody book, any other, if you read any Stoic philosophy, Stoic philosophy is something that has to be practiced, because what you're trying to do is this: up to this point in your life, you've been doing things in a certain way, and now you're trying to rewrite your operating system to do things differently, and that requires a huge amount of, it's a lot of repetition, a lot of practice.
Yeah, I understand.
Do you see how I'm subtly selling my book here?
I know.
But
you're welcome. Just do it. No
problem. It's a anyway. So that's the.
Yeah, you say I think you say in the book also that there are some misconceptions and prejudices around Stoicism and the Stoics, and I'm a case in point, because I had some prejudices towards this group of philosophers. So I was pleasantly surprised that they had written so many, truly wise things that resonate with me. Not all of it, but much of it. So that was a nice.
Can I ask a question? What didn't actually? I'm always curious.
Well, the word Stoic means, to many people, means, as it did to me, it means that you are just and you just endure bad things. You endure injustices. You just endure all the time. That's what I thought it was, but it's not really that.
It's almost like a capacity. It's almost like capacity to suffer.
Yeah,
like
exactly, a capacity to suffer for long periods of time, and because life is suffering anyway. So almost like Jean-Paul Sartre or something, some existential BS. If you don't mind me saying that. But this was more wisely put.
It's not about Stoic philosophy is not about your capacity to suffer. It's about, there is this martial art called Aikido, where you basically, instead of when somebody hits you, instead of you kind of blocking it, you try to redirect it. And by redirecting it, you actually, you don't consume as much energy.
Good analogy.
And so I look at Stoic philosophy as basically kind of as this. It's all it does is just you try to and I'm going to use a number, like 90% of negative emotions we have in life, I probably don't need to be there at all. It's just we allow ourselves to to frame things in that way. So can you imagine if you could get kind of by simple trick of reframing it, like again, like you're stuck in traffic, instead of you being upset about being stuck in traffic, you say, well, this is an opportunity to make phone calls. Suddenly that negative emotion goes away, and you feel better, right? But did it cost you anything? Absolutely nothing. It's just you change how you view it. You change the lens.
Time doesn't exist anyway, so that's a different topic.
But anyway, so that's exactly what Stoic philosophy allows you to do. And therefore, just by making this little tweaks in your life, you can just reduce a lot of negativity, so you don't need to suffer needlessly.
Yeah, some spiritual pointers and teachers, they have this say. It's not a saying really, but they say that that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Would you agree on that?
Absolutely. When you suffering, usually done without a purpose. It's pain without a purpose.
Yeah. Prolonged pain. When you prolong the pain.
That's very.
You ponder on the pain.
So they usually pain. So there's so many angles. Let me address it from different angles. Okay, number one, a lot of things happen to us. We amplify the pain. Like the pain we get, we amplify it through self-talk. That's point number one. And I would argue that meditation could help you to reduce that, because once you, because a lot of times when you do self-talk, when you something what you actually, okay, something happens to you. First of all, you make a choice without even knowing it sometimes, framing it as a bad experience, even though it doesn't have to be. But let's say it is a bad experience. Let's say it is a bad experience. A lot of times, as we keep thinking about it in our head and our self-talk, we actually amplify this. Now, if we, through just kind of mindfulness, through meditation, able to see that this is what our self-talk is about, if we get aware where this is actually what bugs me, by labeling it that this is what's bothering me, you actually diffuse that. That's point number one. Point number two, there's a good pain. There's a if you are involved in any creative activity, pain is a feature of that. And like writing is a very painful endeavor. Like I tell you this, every time I sit down to write, I have these two conflicting emotions. On the one side, and you as a writer could probably relate to this.
I can, tell me about
it. Yeah. But you have these two conflicting emotions. On one side, it's a curiosity because you know what you kind of want to say, but you don't know how you're going to get there. And this curiosity because you're interested. Like I'm interested how it's going to look when I'm done. That's a one side. But on the other side, there's fear. What if I don't get it done? What if I fail in this?
Yeah, especially if you have an audience that's expecting you to come up with this.
Yes, and then what happens? You go through time where I show up to write twice, 2 hours a day, and there was a time actually a couple of months ago for 3 weeks I failed to come up with anything worth publishing, worth sharing with the world, and I, at this point, already trained myself not to get frustrated. I was still frustrated, but I trained myself. I was a lot less frustrated because I realized that is part of the journey. It is what it is. It's really, and this could be another completely different discussion. It's really a conscious mind and subconscious mind. It's this dance between conscious mind and subconscious mind. And over time, subconscious mind, which is this incredibly giant computer we have, I'm just planting the seeds, and it's going to bear fruit. Now, this creative pain, anybody, and in the book I talk about composers. Tchaikovsky went through this, wrote this incredible music that I absolutely love, but that music is written by a lot of creative pain because he struggled a lot creating the music. But there was also a lot of his personal pain because he was a gay person in a incredibly homophobic society. So there was a lot of he felt like an outcast. So you have that personal pain spilling into that as well. So I think happiness in life comes from having good problems. But it's still problems, still great, still.
Yeah, but it comes back to this. It's all about how you interpret what's happening in your life all the time, and you can even frame problems as something else, really, if you want to. But I mean, as you say, there are still problems, but I mean, you can see them as opportunities or challenges, or I mean, some people who seem to be very happy, they kind of almost light up a little bit when some kind of challenge arises, because how wonderful, now I get the opportunity to think a little bit here and see how I can get out of this conundrum.
That requires, absolutely right, and that requires a lot of training.
I know, yeah.
That is
or you can be born with that kind of personality a little bit more than others, perhaps? If you're lucky, most of it aren't. If you're lucky, that's what I was saying. Like our programming, if you are lucky, your programming to look at the world that way might have been gifted to you from your friend or your parent. Then, like in your early age, and that's became your kind of innate, automatic programming. I would argue most of it aren't. And for those who aren't programmed this way, we can still cultivate it in ourselves. So how are we time-wise, by the way?
I got time.
You got time. Excellent, because there are a couple more topics I want to cover. If
I'm enjoying the hell out of it. So that's
wonderful. Me too. Yeah, you were mentioning Tchaikovsky and classical music. So that's the other feature in the book that seemed to be very important to you in life.
Yeah.
The Stoics and classical music. So, what has classical music meant for you in your creative process, and what are your favorite composers, if you have any?
So this is like it's kind of interesting. So I find at a different point in life, I had a like probably the 1 year Tchaikovsky was my favorite composer. Another year was Bruckner, and it just every year it changes. I probably gravitate more towards Russian composers because I think the frequency, I kind of like the frequency of the kind of how much pain is in the music, and this just clicks with me more. But most classical music composers perform today in the symphonies. I love all of those. So classical music basically brings me a lot of joy. That's all it is. It's my drug of choice. It's the music. It's my life without it would be just empty and less happy. So that's all it is. It's not. There's nothing to that. But composers are interesting because I can relate to them as one creative person that creates to another creative person, and the topic of creativity is very interesting to me because as a creative person, I kind of want to understand. I want to understand this better. And the more I learned about their lives, the more comfortable I became that with what I'm doing. Meaning that when I realized how much Tchaikovsky, and actually if you read letters Tchaikovsky wrote to his friends and to his brother, you realize how difficult it was for him to write this music at times. And then again, I'm not at risk of composing music or writing,
you don't play yourself, or
I don't know. Yeah, I don't play an instrument. I just enjoy music. Yeah. No, but my point is, I'm not at risk of writing War and Peace or whatever. But I write, and so therefore I can relate to the creative process. And whenever I struggle, I realize that this struggle as a writer or as an investor, by the way, investing is a very creative endeavor as well. Those struggles are part of any creative process. And even the great ones like Tchaikovsky, Beethoven, Schubert, Bruckner, and other ones, they all struggle at times because that is a feature, again, of creative process. And that was liberating because I realized, well, if they struggled and they're greats, then I should be struggling. Then when I struggle, that's absolutely fine. It's not just unique to me.
That's true. And do you listen to classical music when you write in the morning?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. When I write, I put headphones on and I listen to classical music. Yeah. And I would argue there are studies actually that shows that when you listen to music, it's basically activates left side and right side of your brain at the same time, and increase your creativity. So there is a funny story, and I have it in the book. This is my son Jonah was born in 2001. And at the time, there was this. I read somewhere about Mozart Effect. I don't know if this ever traveled to Scandinavia or not.
The Mozart Effect, yes. I tend to forget what it is, but I heard about it. Yeah,
it's basically if you listen to more like the headline was if kids listen to Mozart's music, they'll become much smarter.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is not what and this was in the infancy of the internet, so I couldn't really get my hands on the actual study, but I like classical music. My wife was pregnant with my son, and I wanted to give my son any advantage he can have. So we literally bought a belt, like it was a belt that had a speaker built into it, and this was before MP3 players. My wife had actually like a CD player attached to the belt, and she walked around listening to Mozart's 21st piano concerto. Like this is like this is like as a parent who wanted to give his his offspring any advantage he could get.
Yeah.
That's what we did. Well,
did it work? You think?
Well, I think it worked for different reasons. So what's interesting about this, and so what actually I read the study, and the study said something else. Actually, the study said that when the researchers used Mozart's music when they were doing the research, that's why it was called Mozart Effect. But here's the thing: they could have been using AC/DC, Michael Jackson, or Frank Sinatra, or anything else. It didn't really matter. Mm-hmm. What really mattered is this: when you listen to music, both left brain and the right brain activate, and while you listen to music, you are basically you become a little more creative. Now, that effect only lasts while you listen to music, and maybe there's 10-15 minutes after you stop. That's about it. However, it gets a little bit tricky. If you listen to music with words and you can understand the words, could actually have a negative impact on you because your brain now starts to process in those words. So it's actually you're taxing your brain. So the music without words actually is better than music with words. Again, it's a very kind of when you create your playlist, you have to be careful that if you listen to music and you can understand the words, then actually that could actually reduce your creativity. Now, I listen to opera, and thankfully I don't speak Italian, French, or German, so I'm fine. So that's fine. But I find personally that I can't listen to violin concertos when I write. Mm-hmm. It just violin. Just somehow it destabilizes my creativity. And the point I'm trying to make, it's very personal. So just because I listen to classical music doesn't mean that,
I guess it's different for everybody.
Yeah. Exactly. But you should be aware that you need to customize your playlist.
Yeah.
To work for you, and be aware that some music may not work. Yeah.
Now you talk a lot about the brain. You did it here, and you have done it. You do it in the book a lot. The organ between the ears, and and you lend a lot of importance to what happens there, as many people do. But you also have a title of your book, which is "Soul in the Game." So and you somewhat casually refer to the soul also in the book, but without defining it closer, just like many people do. I mean, mentioning the soul without defining it closer, but. What is this? What does soul in the game actually mean to you, and what does the soul mean to you? Because you say you're not religious. Your wife is religious. You're not, but you still mention the soul. So, what is there a purpose to life? You also said that we're almost blank slates when we are born, which is interesting to me because I don't think that. But I mean, everybody has their view on these things. So, what is the soul? Is it anything? Do we have a purpose when we come here, or are we just products of our upbringing and our environment and all that? Big question.
Yeah.
I love the big questions.
I look at when I don't look at at soul from a spiritual perspective. I'm looking at this, when you encounter somebody who has this complete obsession and dedication to what they're doing. Somebody who wakes up in the morning and that's all they can think about. It could be either painting, being a dentist, making sushi, like the example I use in the book.
That's a good example.
Yeah. When that person is completely obsessed with with the craft, and the money kind of becomes this secondary for them, and they're just really they want to. The whole purpose in life is like to do the best, like whatever they're doing, to make the best version out of that.
Where does that come from? Is that just neurons firing off?
This is like
you couldn't know, of course, but
I don't. Listen, I don't know where it's coming from, but I know that when I see people that whatever they're doing, and they have this obsession about this. Okay, and so basically, so like the soul in the game, so the like I almost go through kind of a checklist in the book through this, right? So basically, I'm using the example of Jiro, the sushi chef in the Japanese restaurant in Tokyo, and which is a fascinating story. This kind of hole in the wall restaurant in the subway station has only 10 seats, and this was the first 3-star Michelin restaurant.
Yeah, I love that story. It's so good. Yeah.
And I don't know where Jiro got this. He was making sushi since he was, I don't know, 7 or 10 years old, but he has this obsession of making the best sushi in the world. That's all. This is the person who's been making sushi for 70 years, and that's all he can think about. Like, I have no idea where it's coming. Like, I don't know where I have the obsession about investing or about writing. I don't know where my father got obsession about teaching or painting, and the paintings that you can barely see behind me are my father's. I have no idea. And this is not like, this is, maybe at some point I'll figure it out, but this is, I don't have an answer for this. No. But I know that if you find an activity in your life where you have soul in the game, your life will have a lot more purpose. You're going to have a lot more meaning in life. And so a person who has soul in the game, number one, they're going to have this obsession, this love and obsession.
Or passion, perhaps, is a good
passion.
word.
Yeah, passion, yeah, absolutely. Obsession or passion, absolutely. That's, either one is fine. I guess obsession would be maybe kind of one that kind of
a little more negative, perhaps, than passion. Passion is more positive, maybe. Yeah.
In American English, it's not. But no. I find actually it's kind of interesting. I think maybe the cultural thing. Obsession, like in American English, I don't think it's a negative.
Of course, you're right. I didn't know that. I
thought it's fine. No, so passion, but passion. Let's keep it neutral. Passion is fine. If you have passion, then you have to have skin in the game. In other words, like imagine if Jiro was making sushi, but he would not eat it because he wasn't sure if it's if it's going to kill you or not. Well, it doesn't work well, right? It's very difficult. So you need to have skin in the game. Or if I was like investing, if I was making investments, but was not willing to own them myself, then I would not have skin in the game, right?
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're a money person, obviously. You're an investor, a value investor. We haven't talked about that at all, but that's what you do every day. Yeah. Apart from this writing, which is about life and everything, and philosophy and Stoics and classical music, but still you are a money person. And so how do you look upon money? You mentioned before here that for a person with a soul in the game, money is a second-rate thing.
Yes.
In a way. So is it that for you too? I mean, you don't really
absolutely.
mind if you don't make any money on all this investing thing, or?
No. Okay. So this is good. Okay. So let's okay. Just because I am in the business of making money does not mean that I'm obsessed about money. So just like a sculptor is not obsessed about rock, it's just a medium. It's just a medium for me. So if you think about it, so let me address the skin in the game a little bit better, and then So what skin in the game means is that I'm not just enjoying the upside with my clients, but I'm also sharing the downside. So in other words, if Jiro makes sushi and he's eating himself, if it's poisonous, he'll die as well. Or he'll get, he'll feel horrible as well. So therefore, that's a very important part of the soul in the game.
You invest your own private money also.
Yeah. So exactly. So whenever we buy a stock, all my money, all my life savings are managed by my company. So in other words, when we do research for a company and we buy a stock for our clients, the same stock is bought for me. So my interests are completely in line with clients, because not just on the upside, but also on the downside. Because if the stock declines, if I made a mistake, I'll suffer pain as well. Now, it's very important to understand that just because I deal with money does not make me obsessed about money. Because for me, what I'm doing is investing is actually intellectual. It's an intellectual puzzle. Seneca has this saying that's kind of that basically that's what I'm doing is that time discovers truth.
Mm-hmm.
Time discovers truth.
Yeah.
So what I try to do with investing, I try to discover truth before time does, through my analysis. So so for me, just money is just money. I would let me put it this way: I'm well paid, but I would be working for 1/3 of what I'm paid today, or 1/10. It's not, I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it because I love doing it. And I think about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is one of the wealthiest people in the United States. He's 91 years old, I think. And he is waking up every morning and loves what he, kind of what he calls this. He dances to work.
As much as a 91-year-old can dance.
Yeah, and even though he's giving away, yeah, that's true. Even though he's going to give away, he's giving away all his money anyway. So it's not the money that drives him; it's the intellectual puzzle.
You mentioned Warren Buffett a lot in the book.
Yeah.
Is that because he's also a value investor like you, more than many other of the famous, very rich people that you hear about?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's not because I admire Warren Buffett's wealth, which is I have absolutely
no, it's
absolutely
because what he has been doing.
Because Warren Buffett actually deserves my admiration for two different reasons. Because of what he taught me about investing, and because what he also taught me about life.
Yeah. Okay.
And as you read the book, you see that this is when I quote Warren Buffett, it's not about investing usually there in the book. It's about his observations about life that were very important to me. Vitaliy
Katsenelson, where can people now find your book and all the other things that you write and do?
Sure.
Is there a good place for them to go?
Yeah. So number one, the book is available on Audible as well. So if you like to listen, you can on Audible. But so the book's website is soulinthegame.net. Now, if you buy not if you buy the book, when you buy the book, if you go on the website, there was instructions how you can get 5 new chapters that I wrote after the book already came out. And I'll keep writing and adding to that. So if you got those chapters, you get other ones as I write more. So it's on the soulinthegame.net. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to my articles and just read my articles, about life, investing, etc., you can go to contrarianedge.com. So it's Contrarian
Edge.
Yeah, edge.com. Yeah. And we also have a podcast where basically think about like when I write articles, and if you like to listen to articles, not read them, there's a professional artist who reads the article to you. It's like articles on tape. Yeah. So you can get them on investor.fm or just search for my name. It's going to be the podcast name is I think it's called Intellectual Investor, and wherever you can you listen to a podcast, it will be
That's
there.
all great. Yeah, I'll make sure to put in links in the description of course also to this episode. So thank you so much for being a guest on Mind the Shift. I really enjoyed this conversation, and good luck now with everything, Vitaliy.
Andres, thanks so much. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
If you like this video and other interviews and talks on Mind the Shift, please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. And you can follow Mind the Shift on Facebook and Instagram. And you can follow me, Anders Bolling, on all the main social media and also on medium.com. Thank you.